Hi, I'm Charles Arthur.
And I'm Samuel Gibbs.
We're here to talk about tablets from 2013. So, Sam, let's start with the worst.
What we have here is the Argos My tablet, and to be honest, it's a bit of a junker. It's £100. You'd be better off spending it on literally anything.
I managed to try it out in the tablet review I did recently, and I couldn't even get it to respond to a touch.
No, it's really poor.
Okay, let's get rid of it. Goodbye. Next up, we have the Microsoft Surface. This is actually the Surface Pro from last year. They've done a new version of it, the Pro 2, although it's the same price and it looks exactly the same.
It's a spec bump.
It's a spec bump. This is the type cover which comes off. The thing I found about this was that it's just really heavy. And compare it to something like what I have here, which is actually the iPad Air, even with the smart cover on, this is really heavy.
It's a chunker. I mean, but that's because of its design. This is a full Windows PC in a tablet form factor. This is the tablet for the people that don't really want a tablet. What they want is a laptop with a touchscreen that you can detach the keyboard. Really, that's what it is.
But for daily use, carrying this around, I think,
it's weighty.
Yeah, it is heavy. And if you really need to have Windows in your backpack, I guess you could, but it seems like quite a lot of a sacrifice for your back.
Take a laptop. This is another Windows tablet, but this runs Windows RT. This is the Nokia Lumia 2520, and it is basically Nokia's first tablet. And I mean, it is quite beautiful. I like the design of it. It is very different. If you look at the rest of the other black slates, it has character.
Bit chunky. It's not as heavy as the Surface, but it's still fairly weighty, I'd say.
Yes, it's weighty. Actually, it's weighty now. It's not weighty probably last year. It's okay. about mid-weight for last year. I mean, it is solidly built, but it's running Windows RT.
And the trouble with RT is that it doesn't have Google Chrome, it doesn't have iTunes, and I've seen people bring RT devices back because they don't run iTunes, and they never will run iTunes. Apple's never going to write it for them.
It's Windows without the legacy support, and the legacy support for all your traditional Windows applications is the thing that really does Windows. So it's kind of halfway house that doesn't really need to exist.
Fair enough. Over here we have the Tesco Huddle.
Yes, this was the surprise winner for me this year. It's a really good, solid budget Android tablet from Tesco. It's fast, it does generally what people need to do. It's got a decent 7-inch screen, it runs Android Jelly Bean, and I mean, it has enough ports and connections to kind of do what people need. It's available for around £120, but you can also get it for £60 worth of club card vouchers.
And it looks like it'd be robust enough to give to the kids. They're not going to mind that it's a bit heavier perhaps than other models.
I think it'd take a hit as well.
Okay, that's quite a nice looking device. Next up here is the iPad Mini Retina. For my money, this is a great little tablet. It's a step up from the iPad Mini of last year. The thing for me that makes the iPad Mini and the iPad Air, which we'll get onto, is the selection of apps.
I mean, that's one of Apple's strong points. Its app ecosystem is very well developed, and arguably more than an Android experience, especially on the tablet side. The iPad apps, people are really designing apps specifically for Apple's tablets.
Although it is pricey as well, and that for a lot of people is going to be the thing that puts them off. It's the question really between going for the premium one or going for something like the Huddle.
Yeah, definitely. The new Nexus 7 has a 1080p screen within a 7-inch form factor, and that really is super crisp. I don't think you really need to get any higher than that. I mean, and the screen on it is really quite good. It's got great viewing angles, it's good for sharing, that kind of thing. This one's built by Asus but controlled by Google, so they've turned the screws down on the price, and again, you can pick this thing up for about £150. The standard retail is £200, but retailers are discounting it.
So rather like the sort of Nexus line of phones, it could be that Google, to some extent, is subsidising this, that it's taking a hit on the price because it's getting people to sort of buy into its services. I mean, I've used Android a long time. I found that there are little usability bugs about it, which I find troubling. And the other thing I found is that it's really hard to get the breadth of apps that you want.
Most of the really good Android apps have iOS analogs, but the same can't be said the other way. So things like GarageBand, for instance, there isn't really something similar on Android, and at least not within the same price bracket.
It's interesting, when I was asking on Twitter for people to recommend apps for the Nexus 7, the answer I kept on getting back from people was, well, it shows the Google apps really well.
Yeah.
And I thought that was actually telling, you know, which is, it's great if you really like Google stuff, but if you're trying to do things that are different from that, then, well...
For me, as a Google user, that is one of the benefits of the Nexus 7. It really does plug into everything that I use day to day, and the experience is almost unmatched if you're a Google user.
Next tablet, the iPad Air. So this is Apple taking the iPad and turning it into something which is really refined and really light compared to the last year's one. Now they've really slimmed it down. It's exactly the same industrial design and look as the iPad mini, but it's got this big screen and it's really light. And actually there's a sort of optical illusion I find going on, which is the iPad mini feels like it's heavier than the iPad Air.
Yes.
It's really weird.
I mean, for me, Apple basically took what was a good tablet to start with, but really shrunk it down, and it's the first major revision since the introduction of the iPad on the industrial design front. And it looks gorgeous, it's light, it's easy to put in your backpack, and for me, if I was to buy a large tablet, it would definitely be the iPad Air. One of the problems is the price.
Yeah, sure, that's certainly a barrier for some people, I think, and although it's interesting how many people are prepared to spend that extra bit, because I think they perceive that they're getting some sort of, well, they're getting a benefit out of it. If you were choosing out of all these tablets that we've had, which one would be your pick?
I'd have to say the Nexus 7. I don't think you can beat it on price. The iPad mini with Retina display certainly comes close, but at £300 it's a bit of an ask for a small tablet.
For me, I've got to say, even though the iPad mini with Retina is great and has a really good screen, I find that the iPad Air, with the big screen and all the apps and all the accessibility you get with iOS 7 particularly, that's actually the winner for me. Doesn't mean this isn't a really good tablet, I think, but actually you get all the benefits, I think, plus the big screen with the iPad Air.